All right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I know we have callers from all around the world, literally, to talk about, the topic of securing the ag supply chain and tractor hacking. And my friend Sick.Codes is going to speak to what he discussed at DEF CON this year about tractor hacking. And we have a great panel. So I will let you start off. And if you could have the panel introduce themselves. Thank you.
Yeah, sure, man. Thanks for inviting us, and great to be here. I can see the audience. That is absolutely awesome. There's actually people here. Yeah, my name's Sick. You may have seen the talk, may have not. I think some of the people possibly or definitely have. Basically, we just presented some work at DEF CON that we'll go over a bit today. Some of the work was like, basically we just sort of analyzed, I guess, the security aspect of agriculture, and it had a pretty big effect. If you haven't seen the FBI report this week or last week about the threat of ransomware, seems to be have hit a nerve in a couple of companies, and yeah, pretty much just, that wasn't the idea at the start, but it actually took off more than we could probably expect. And with me today, we've got Kelly Codas, Hignio Ochoa, or Wormer, Wabafet, Dorka Devil, myself, Sick.Codes, and Paul Roberts from the Security Ledger. He's probably going to he's going to ask us some questions, and also the audience, if you guys want to ask questions too, that would be awesome. I know some of you here to hear us, so yeah, I want to make it interactive because that was probably, yeah, I mean, that's I'm sure there's some questions out there. So Paul?
Hey there, thanks. This is Paul Roberts. I'll turn my camera off because I'm happy to have people know who I am. Yeah, I'm editor-in-chief at the Security Ledger, cybersecurity news publication, and also founder of a advocacy group called Secure Repairs. That is a group of information technology, information security professionals who support the right to repair. We've got more than 200 of those. Ran into Sick.Codes via Reddit thread. I don't know how long ago it was, man. A while ago, talking about
almost a year ago.
I think more than a year ago, yeah. Talking about TCL vulnerabilities, remotely exploitable vulnerabilities, TCL smart TVs, and our relationship blossomed after that, and been really interested to follow his work. Pen testing, red teaming, some connected precision ag equipment, software, and services, and I think this is a new frontier in the information security, critical infrastructure space. I've been writing about cybersecurity for like 20 years, and I think this is a big new area, and we're going to see and hear a lot more about it.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I agree. Oi, Wabafet, do you want to? So me and Wabafet actually met halfway through, and has anyone not seen the talk, the one that was presented at DEF CON, or bits of it? We can actually see it, so just like
you can hear me, right,
if you haven't. Yeah. We should ask if people have not seen the talk, if you wanted to go over a bit of it. Do you know what I mean? Oh, feel free to go over it, man. You can
what do you want to go over?
I was just going to screen share maybe like the last 10 slides, unless Paul wants to jump straight into some questions or something.
Yeah, man, I think, yeah, give them kind of the Spark Notes version of the DEF CON presentation, and then we can probably go into a discussion from there.
Yeah.
Can you leave that on, Sick? I'm not used to presenting to public like this.
Actually, I've got the original slides. Hang on a sec. And then oh, here we go. Slides, ODP, PDF. I can use the PDF. Oh, that's all good. Share screen.
Before we do that, Sick, do we want to just let the other members on the call introduce themselves?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, my name's Wabafet. We work together, me and Sick.Codes. We had met originally through kind of funny, like a Twitter thing, almost like Paul and him had, where we basically found bugs around the same time and just one thing led to another.
My name's T02. You may know me as Wormer. My day job, I do CISO work, and I'm an incident response at a hospital. And I just hack on everything. So I'll jump in when we get to anything good.
Yeah, my name is Kelly Caue. So day job wise, I'm the tech lead for a software team called Application Security at, I guess, a large tech company. And yeah, I guess I also just hack on everything when the opportunity arises. So I will also jump in as necessary.
My name is Dr. Double, and I'm a vulnerability researcher. I'm at WABA, and then me and WABA get to know Sick.Codes, and that's that led to a big thing here, and that's one part of it, and here it goes.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's really cool that we're all from pretty much everywhere around the world. I mean, I'm in Asia. Webberfet's in somewhere in the US. Actually, but
Bad.
All right, we're picking back up where we left off.
fantastic. So I was just going to run through some slides, and if everyone's, we're just going to run through some of the slides and then bring in some of the researchers as they come along with the story. So I won't go too slow, because I think most people have actually may have seen it, or they already know a lot about agriculture. But if you don't, there's a recorded video of this already on YouTube on the DEF CON site, but you can hear it from the horse's mouth today. So this is just an very old tractor, and going to a new tractor. That's a forage harvester. And the reason I really like this one is because it's got chainsaws on the front. None of the research was paid for. All of it's out good faith. And yeah, everything belongs to the respective owners. And I know there's some owners in the audience of the brands. We'll get to that in a bit. But myself, Sick.Codes, and there's all my social profiles. Basically, we're just sort of exaggerating the farming industry in Illinois and surrounding Iowa as well, obviously, and the Midwest, and like everything is a farm. Just some of the dangers that we can have: sprayers, denial of service, which is massively important, but it's possibly overlooked. Malicious firmware. That one was proven to be ridiculous. This one was proven to be ridiculous too. But spraying, let me just skip through. Willie Caue, yeah, he was involved. The grandson, Theo Brown. Kenney from Nebraska, farmer, engineer. And the hackers who have just introduced themselves. I think it's everyone except Regex is missing. And John Jackson, I don't know why they didn't come. And Chief Cool Arrow, but he's
I'm
missing
right here.
alive. So. Who's that?
John Jackson, right here.
Oh, you just joined.
Mr. Hacking himself.
He just joined. Holy crap. Okay, so I'll start. I'll go from, let's go through to like something interesting. Where is it? SF1, SF2, price of corn, trade secrets, biofuel, and we start to the actual hacks. Who wants to start on the hacks? Okay, who wants to start from here? Someone want to start? Webberfet. Do you want to say some stuff?
What do you want me to present on first?
Yeah,
You want to do the website first?
Yeah, I think we just go through here. So this is just, I said we were laughing at, oh shit.
I guess
Oh,
before
that's
that, Sick, do you want to just, talk about, like, so we've got the equipment in the field, and then we've got the software and services that is allowing farmers and dealers to kind of manage that equipment remotely. And also the data it collects. And I guess one thing to point out is obviously your work was focused on those services, not on the hardware itself.
Problem is, yeah, with some of the platforms, they have so much integration with the software that you can control the stuff remotely. So you'll see in a minute in the auto track guidance, which is I don't know the difference between auto track and auto auto track road, but it sounds like it's something to do with roads. Auto fill, and then but yeah, some of this stuff's fully remotely controlled, and I think the vendors that we dealt with at this point, Case and I don't really want to name anyone today, but yeah, the two vendors both have remote access, but so do the other ones. I'm pretty sure, Class, Case, Agco, Trimble, obviously. Trimble, here's some of the other stuff. That's just mapping and data. And that's the remote access style accessing. That's the thumbnail of the video as well, which is quite interesting. I don't know why that one came up, but everyone thinks that's me, which is not me. So actually a dear technician. Here we go, connected support. That's it, remote access. That's JD Link. I didn't know there was a dashboard for JD Link, but I do now.
So maybe have each of you maybe go through and talk a little bit about what piece of the puzzle you looked at or worked on as part of this overall project to
I can
look
introduce
at.
them if you want.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So they'll pop up in a sec. I mean, this is the first vulnerability. This is about leaking data out of the API, which is now patched. Obviously, it got patched pretty quickly. And that was some news about it, which blew up a bit. That's correct. It wasn't all tractors. It was only some tractors, which were the ones that were connected to the newer systems, like the newer ones. Like the older tractors, obviously they don't have any connection to the internet, so they wouldn't be. I'm talking about the oldest tractors, but they wouldn't be connected to the internet at all, and therefore would not actually be under that umbrella. And that's how I met Wabafet, who actually just came through. He wants to jump in now if he wants, and yeah, tell him how we went. Man.
Okay. Well, what happened was I was trolling Twitter one day, like I usually do, looking for my next thing, which, because I'm a good guy, would just basically mean a company bragging or boasting that maybe they don't have any security vulnerabilities, and I can maybe get a bounty out of it. So I happened to see that John Deere had said that they didn't have any vulnerabilities, and then somehow Sick.Codes came into play. So I messaged him on Twitter, told him what I had found, which was basically like XSS injections and stuff like that, and with the centers that they have between their hardware and software layers. And basically we started with domain enumeration, footprinting all their assets. Then, as Sick says, we fell in love. We basically branched out with John J. Hacking, Hig, all these guys, and it just became something bigger than we thought it was going to be. And I basically handed all the stuff off.
Do you remember saying this?
Yeah, of course I do.
I mean, the one on the screen, it says, I'm getting, at the end of the day, I'd rather do it for free than lose food. Because we were doing the bug bounty stuff for free. This just captured the moment between me and Wabafet at the start. This was a long time ago. This is literally just after one of the vendors got their VDP in place, which is the first vendor in the agriculture industry to actually have a proper VDP, which is something to be proud of, to be fair. There's actually none other than that at the moment, except I think Bayer produced one, I think, a couple of days ago.
It's a vulnerability disclosure policy, VDP.
That's correct, yeah. So Deere is actually the only one. So if you're actually at another company or another type of industrial control related, I don't know, system, then yeah. Who else is? Oh yeah. Did you want to?
But I'd like to think I'd like to think that we were directly responsible for Deere and Bayer's responsible disclosure programs.
Or we just kickstarted it. That's right. Yeah.
You know what I mean. We gave them the incentives. You know what I mean.
Yeah, fast tracking. I'd probably say fast. Like I said at the time, or recently, I've been saying like they're not thanking us yet, but they'll probably thank us in a few months when they realize. Like if you have a look at this message here, which this encapsulates everything they've got. They've even said we have good faith and safe harbor. This was the first email that I sent, and Wabafet, this is your email, by the way. Oh, that's your email as well.
The safe harbor.
Yeah, this is the first message that we had with Deere, and they actually, before this, they were asking to send through to the social media team, and that's obviously changed, and now it's like a proper HackerOne program. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So Sick, maybe talk, give an overview of the vulnerabilities that you discovered in the Deer platform. You mentioned there were some information disclosure vulnerabilities. Was there stuff that was remotely exploitable? Like what types of flaws when you started poking around in these JD Connect and JD Link and these other services? What types of stuff did you find? You and the whole team, obviously.
Yeah, this is the XSS, but whoever found it first. I mean, I think everyone eventually found this one because it was like it was so easy to exploit. But I think it was Webberfet. This is the one that Webberfet produced, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. There's like 5 of them, I think. Me and Hig found a shit ton of them. Excuse my language.
What are we looking at here, guys? What is this?
Okay.
This is the cross-site scripting attack.
What's the feature of the website that you found it on?
It was on the purchase order, the dealer supplier portal page, which is now private anyway. But if someone wants to explain how and why an XSS is terribly bad, that would be great.
Yeah, I
Go
could do
ahead,
that.
Hig. Oh, okay, there you
John.
go, John.
Yeah, so basically what you're looking at here is reflected cross-site scripting. Reflected cross-site scripting is something that where basically a threat actor can take a payload that is appended to the end of a URL within a parameter. And basically how it works is they can take that URL and they can send it to someone and trick them into thinking that they're logging into the website or using a part or component of the web application. And then they can basically steal their cookies or phish them and steal their credentials or potentially take over their browser. And this is pretty problematic, especially because the cross-site scripting vulnerabilities were found in a bunch of stuff, including, that dealer login portal. So it would be pretty easy to start doing actions on behalf of other users once you just social engineer and just kind of pretext and context the exploit. So reflected cross-site scripting starts out a little small and then can end up critical depending on what you could acquire.
That's it, man. And I think that was also, we found more in this one here, which was quite funny. This one we should have exploited to an extent like that we didn't really, we touched on it. This is the IBM DB2. I think a bunch of us found this. I was actively trying to write queries to it, but I don't really know how to do IBM DB2 stuff. I think Hig and Webberfet had also seen this one.
If I remember
anyway,
correctly, there was SQL injection on this too.
Yeah, this is the SQL injection.
Yeah, we had
one.
SQL injection on that.
I think I've got the result.
SQL injection.
Oh yeah, this is the start of it.
What data did that? So SQL injection. So you're using SQL queries, kind of malformed to basically send commands and other things to the backend database. What types of data? What types of information was that giving you access to?
Yeah, we can see what this is probably going to produce if it was fully exploitable. But this produced an invoice number 0106 with the supplier number of star or pound, if you guys call it that, and then the email address just random. Yeah, wildcard stuff.
So this
and
is
then
just
the
like
invoice
wild
number.
card.
Yeah.
So that's a vulnerability in itself.
Yeah. I mean, that shouldn't
just
reveal...
being able to see that. Just being able to see that.
That's like give me all records. *John Deere, anything with that extension.
Yeah.
It didn't do anything, but what it did do is produce this little error message, and I just kept injecting stuff into this query. I had no idea how to use IBM DB2. That's the thing. Like, if somebody knows how, like, you can see it's actually putting the query. I was writing these queries, by the way. I was writing those queries at the bottom. And
it's like a nested injection.
Yeah.
So one thing to keep in mind is, like, you guys do this for a living. So you're looking at web applications all the time. When you find like verbose error messages like this or account enumeration, like, what in your mind, like, what are you thinking? And what is that saying about the overall integrity of the application itself?
Kelly.
So they're not sanitizing user inputs, right? And they're also not saying, like, okay, this is information that we shouldn't show to anyone who uses this application. This is debug related information. This is not something that should be available if you enter a query and you're looking for all the email addresses or all the purchase order numbers or something like that, you shouldn't be able to get back what the bad query was.
Yeah, and you shouldn't. So this is also injecting. Like I actually wrote all that query. Like that was actually the union stuff was all me, but I actually don't know how to do it. So that means you can fully inject it. And you're right, it shouldn't be available. And I don't think it isn't available anymore, but there's no reason to say that why you couldn't be getting it from behind the firewall. Say for example, you're already logged in, or you are a dealer in the network, and you would be able to use that page. You could still possibly exploit that page if it hasn't been fixed on the inside. And that's important to if someone wants to talk about the importance of testing on the inside or like behind the WAF.
If I may, we talked a lot about like all these exploits, and I'm kind of wondering if we shouldn't back up and kind of explain the workflow that we were going through, right? Like how many domains did we get? And I mean, from the get-go, we ended up with a giant stash of information, right? So one things that most companies don't do is control their information leakage. So we had all these DNS entries that we were able to then go and scan with our vulnerability scanners, personally play with, inject code into, and you're right, we do this pretty regularly. I mean, there's not a time when one of us isn't online hacking something. But
So
from but from an overview from the user, think about every time you entered your tractor's VIN number, or you have an account at JD and you're like, man, I need to get I want to try the new model, or I want to order this piece, or I need to upgrade some firmware. Anytime you put your normal information in there in any one of those spots that you would generally do your daily work, we go in and we kind of do a level of chaos engineering. We put in known payloads and stuff to us, things that we would expect the user not to do and not to expect. And that kind of causes the applications to give us errors. And we just got really good at reading these errors. And that's
kind of like Blue's Clues.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so that's how the hacking, especially of John Deere, right? Because when we were going through here and finding these applications, it was like, man, what even is this app? Okay, let's go try and do things. And then, and there's 5 or 6 of us constantly on one of hundreds, if not thousands of endpoints we had for them.
I think one of the main things was we had the Axiom. I haven't got it in the slides for some reason, but I do have it in the picture. We had the Axiom server, which produced a list of actually endpoints, which made it really easy. That shouldn't have been available, but remember that. Do you guys remember the Axiom? I don't know if I put it in the slides, but it literally let us see exactly what services were online, what's crashing all the time, what and then we pulled out some exploits later, but let me get to the next one. This is another XSS DOM based, which you'll see right here. Do you want to talk about this? Is a WABAFED's computer, so do you want to chat about that one, man?
Yeah, well, it's basically a regurgitation of what John said, because you can't really explain it any better than the impact of that, or even what Kelly said about the non-sanitation of user input. It basically leads down to which one of us in the group is like quick trigger that's going to find the bug before the other one does, because it's inevitable, especially with John Deere software at this level. It was Swiss cheese, to say the least. And
I think it's certainly because
had a field day.
I was just going to say it's only because no one had ever looked at it. I mean,
we meant them no harm, just having some good fun with them, making sure everything was safe for their users.
Yeah, and if someone wants to chat, so who wants to explain the DOM-based XSS attack here? It's like you can write extra HTML onto the page.
Yeah, I'll let John explain this one because he does it.
Sure. So where this gets interesting is, so you see that it's actually written, so it's getting like stored there, and what you can actually end up doing is, so the DOM is breaking. Typically, if it's DOM cross-site scripting, it's going to be a lot like reflected cross-site scripting, in the sense of you're going to give someone a payload via URL, and you're basically going to do what I was talking about before, which is social engineer or trick someone into clicking that link. In some instances, when you see something like that, if it's persistent, so if you see those characters persistently there, even after you refresh the page, then you've got an instance of stored cross-site scripting. And that's complex because you don't have to social engineer someone. You can store it. And when they go to do something like reserve their equipment, like you see in this instance, then you could end up with a pop-up, and then they think that they need to do something. And then they like put in their credentials or get phished or redirected to another website without you having to trick them. So those are the two aspects there.
That's it, man. I just want to touch on a few things. If there's anyone here who actually works at D, I know there is. I just want to say sorry for any sleepless nights, because we obviously didn't actively attack Dia, even though maybe the media makes it sound like that, or you know what I mean. But we didn't actually attack them on purpose. We just were looking at targets which were exciting, I guess, if that makes sense, like something that's exciting.
Yeah, it was just out of curiosity.
Yeah, out of curiosity, and we actually meant zero harm. And like I said, it's better for us to go in there than it is to have, you know, the other type of event that happens, the bad things, and it happens.
Yeah, we just want people to know that we don't mean anybody any harm. We do this just to make sure that their customers are safe.
Yeah. Sick, you said in interviews, one of the things you sort of said, we got the keys to the kingdom. Could you talk about that particular part of the pen test that you guys did, and when you say we had the keys to the kingdom, kind of what level of what access you had, and how did you obtain it?
Yeah, that one comes up in a bit, in probably about a minute. Yeah, because we're starting. I just in the slides, I think the other guys have seen this on, but the machine book, and that let us. So this is, I'll touch on this because I mentioned it on the Malwarebytes podcast. But if you have all of these email addresses, all of these times of equipment, of bookings, of the demo units, I believe, and I'm just speculating from like watching YouTube videos and seeing agricultural equipment get rented out for. Yeah, I don't know. I just seen it on the YouTube videos, specifically the farmer. I forgot his name. Millennial Farmer. I think a lot of people have seen that YouTube channel, and I literally just got introduced to it during this session. But seeing that, and then seeing like, oh, I've got the tractor on Wednesday, and then seeing this book, this website, and I'm like, oh, that's what this is. This is the booking unit thing for that. I didn't look any one of names up, but I'm just saying like some of the names in the @Dia email addresses or at the vendor email addresses, they resolve to pretty high up people in the organization. And if you were cunning enough, and that's how a lot of ransomware is happening these days, is through phishing, spear phishing, or targeted attacks. And if you actually know that many like specifics about an event, you know, like, hey, it's Terry from admin, I'm booking the tractor on Wednesday, can you change it to Tuesday? Here's the link. And then you put the XSS, and the XSS takes you to a form, which is like a different website. You can ruin the whole organization in one click. That's how you pair the XSS with something this serious like a database dump. You know what I mean? You can actually pair them up and then get full access, which we did later on, but we'll get into that. So
that's right. It's not just what you can do immediately. It's also how the information you obtain can set you up to do follow-on attacks or compromises via phishing or whatever. That's why for, you know, sophisticated attackers, Russian, you know, nation state actors, you know, Exchange servers, email servers, often one of the top targets along with the domain controller, because they can get access to all that email content, all that context that they can then use to social engineer, phish people at their choosing, right? Not right away, maybe 6 months, you know?
Yeah, that's true. The timing part of it, I never thought about. You could store that information, and there's a lot of insider stuff happening these days. I think, Kelly, what have you heard from your organization about insider threats?
So I think in general, insider threats are definitely a category of thing that we worry about. Just because, you know, if you have that, you know, at organization.whatever.com email address, you have access to so much more than you do just as a customer or as a, you know, as a user of web systems. So if I have something like a whole database full of email addresses of like @deer.com, and I have something on the other hand, like, direct access to their email portal, like Paul was saying, or, anywhere with a login page, I can just sit there with their email addresses and start brute forcing their passwords, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's right. And there was no brute force control on some of the parts. I remember at the API at the beginning, there was no, like I sent requests unauthenticated without cookies for username lookups. They fixed that really quickly. So congratulations to Deer for fixing that one. And all of the ones actually they fixed really quickly. Just took a while. There was just a miscommunication problem. And I think Casey will get into that later on. Casey's also speaking. But just the miscommunication, it's happening a lot lately as well. Even within the bug bounty community, the communication is lackluster. Who wants to discuss some of the stuff that's going on at the moment? I mean, outside of Deer, but just the fact, like the existing bug bounty issue about like pricing and doing it
That's
for free
kinda
and then
easy.
getting treated like shit. You know what I mean? Yeah, go for it, John.
I mean, I wrote a book on it. So one of the things I want to say is I think a lot of people get confused between VDPs, vulnerability disclosure programs, and BBPs, bug bounty programs. But the easiest way to tell the difference is VDPs don't pay money, and bug bounty programs, well, it's a bounty, so you're getting paid money for finding vulnerabilities. The problem that a lot of the people in the industry are having with this is they're setting up bug bounty programs and they're unprepared. They don't have security staff, or they're not getting set up with the right staff to basically just get everything set up. And what ends up happening is they underprice vulnerabilities, or they don't get to resolving the vulnerability reports quickly. And it's really, it's bad. It's really bad. So for instance, in John Deere's case, they set up this bug bounty program. And if you're listening, not trying to rip on you so much so as it's all just new to everyone. But basically, they weren't paying for any of the vulnerabilities. And that's problematic because when you invite researchers into private programs and they think they're going to get paid, and then everything's out of scope for payment, it gets really complex because, it's free work and you're not getting paid money. In some senses, that's okay, but that kind of needs to be relayed beforehand so researchers don't end up joining programs and being forced or binded to non-disclosure agreements.
I think the guy's here, but that's all. I mean, the guy that actually that I was chatting to during that. I mean, like I said, it was a learning experience, and I don't want to rip on anyone. And he's a good guy. And
no, of course.
Yeah. A lot's changed since then. And
it's not like that. I think.
Yeah. I'm just trying to put the positive light on it.
Yeah, another thing though.
It's not like that. You know what I mean? Like.
It's better.
There's a maturity. I think what you're saying is because there's a maturity curve, I guess, for these. And just like you wouldn't open a store without thinking through, like, how am I going to manage transactions? What am I selling? How much am I, going to charge for them? Like, what's my overhead? Kind of the same thing with the bug bounty program. You don't just throw the doors open and invite the public in and then figure out the stuff on the back end.
Yeah, really.
So they did start private. They did start private, but they didn't put bounties on it, and there still aren't. And I highly recommend that the vendor put bounties on their program, or any vendor or all vendors put bounties on their programs, because it's kind of offensive to invite researchers to programs, which you may not be aware of, but it's kind of offensive. It's kind of like rude to invite someone privately, especially as John was saying, to a program and then not get paid for it.
Yeah,
you know what I have to say to that, Sick?
Kelly.
Think about what our consulting rates would be. Think about what our consulting rates would be if you were to hire us.
True.
Right. Like we're doing work that we would do if we were doing it to be paid for. Like it's
Right. And Kelly brings up a good point. I mean, like the consulting rates, you're looking at a 1 week long engagement, 2 week long engagement can end up costing a company A smaller
30,000.
company, $20,000-$30,000. If they're a bigger company, you could look at upwards of
It costs more.
$50,000 to $100,000. So, it's not a matter of, oh, you need to pay us. It's a matter of, well, if you're having people help you find vulnerabilities for you to patch so you don't get exploited and ransomware and all that kind of stuff, then what you should probably do is just, pay them as a courtesy.
Invest.
Especially if it's private too. Yeah, it is an investment. So it's worthwhile, and it always has been.
Yeah, man. Do you want to discuss your CV? I mean, we've only got like 15 minutes, and we can also, if anyone wants to reach out to us after, you can send us emails. I'll try and, I mean, you can send us the emails on the slides or info@sick.codes or in the Discord. I think in the CornCon Discord. Just feel free to let's
do we want to
questions. I think questions.
do we
questions
I think
from the audience.
take some questions, and also maybe talk about the broader context, which is bug bounty programs aren't new. Zero-day initiative was more than a decade ago. More than 15 years ago. And yet in the agriculture sector, I think one of the things your research pointed out is that these are new things. These are new developments.
Who's got questions? Because I know there was definitely some questions.
At this point,
Or does anyone want to introduce themselves?
I think we have some people in the audience who are not going to ask questions.
Fair enough. That's all right.
Well, thank you for joining and listening to us anyways.
For those of you who are visiting,
Not allowed
have any questions about equipment and hacking and vulnerabilities or bug bounties, just let me know. I've got the microphone here. You guys want to talk about bug bounties and the bigger picture, I think you said?
Yeah, I mean, I could touch on that a little bit if you guys want me to.
He's talking about the audience, I think.
Oh, okay.
Is that right?
For the panel.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah, let John do that. He wrote the book on it.
Yeah. But just quickly, I want to mention, if anyone does want to reach out and they don't want to be on tape or anything, just email one of us. You can Google any of us, probably Sick.Codes. I'll just send it to whoever it is if you haven't got their email. But if you want to ask something specifically, then definitely reach out. But yeah, go for it, John, and then talk about your CVE, your big one.
Sure. Yeah. So I was going to say that the bigger picture here is to protect the agricultural industry, because if you think about it, it's a critical industry, right? We're talking about food. What happens if a state threat actor manages to get control of equipment like tractors or something like that and end up destroying crops, right? Destroying the food. So it's a food supply chain attack. And this is a serious issue because nation state threat actors are kind of ramping up in what they do and who they target, and they're going after critical infrastructure, as a lot of you have probably heard about with the pipeline attack, where they dropped
data as well.
Yeah, data too. I mean, data is always people are always after data, but I think the bigger picture here with agriculture is disrupting food supply, like in Australia, where they ransomware that meat production company,
JBS,
and then they actually
JBS Foods.
They're a Brazilian company, but
and they
inside.
Was it Brazilian? So
that was in the
Brazilian.
U.S. The facility was in the U.S.
Yeah. So I mean, overall, it's bad because now they're having trouble, or they were having trouble producing meat, right? And getting meat out there. And so literally it is a food supply chain attack and preventing people from distributing food. So that's kind of the mission here with bug bounty programs and with security programs in general, is you need to be able to set up comprehensive security programs to prevent criminals from exploitation for malicious gain, whether it be money or whether it be just disrupting resources and supply of resources. So that's kind of the bigger picture there.
I was going to mention,
Sure,
it's not like painting a house. Like you paint it once. If you're doing security, you can invite 100 types of people to come and paint your house, and it's never going to be fully painted. So you'll never get everything. That's just an analogy I brought up in my head. But it's probably good to actually engage researchers over and over again, because a lot of these companies that we looked at did have actually security programs and did have actually people who were pen testing them or automated stuff and crappy tools. Not their tools, I'm saying like the people that were looking at them. But when somebody who are proficient, who come in and just have a look, like the world's best painter comes in and just starts painting, and they get everything in one go, and just like in this example, we could see the Pega. So I'll give this one to Pega actually, because Pega actually caused this in a way that is a little bit different, because I can see that the Pega admins issue these keys, and we're not going to get. It's so embarrassing actually looking at these pages that we got here, because there's people in the audience.
This is Pega systems you're talking about.
Yes,
is the vendor.
Before we get the Pega, it looks like someone might have a question there. Do you have a question?
Yeah, we do have a question. Ron?
So my question is this, cross-site, XSS and SQL injections are a big deal for ransomware and taking your PC, but I haven't seen you guys present anything that actually does affect the food supply from an operational standpoint. My Rick brings the phone on missing tractions and say, if something malfunctions, it's automated, you can always manually override this. So how do you guys find that this has an impact on actual food production other than taking people's attention from big out in the fields?
Sure.
Well,
so
JBS, look at JBS. I mean, JBS they were socially engineered through data acquisition for someone to install malware. I guess this is a guess, right? This is a typical thing, but that would disrupt it, and it did. I mean, there were literally trucks standing at the front with cows or cattle just waiting there. You know what I mean? Like, that is a real example that is exploitable. Even today, we saw something like I was seeing on Twitter, like a Qantas email address, a Qantas website with an open redirect, or imagine a DHL website with an open redirect. You could just send that to somebody at DHL, and they would believe it's a DHL website, and they would go straight through to whatever access or whatever portal you're sending, like what destination you want to send them to. And I think Webberfed's punched a hole in open redirects before.
Yeah,
but
well, I can explain.
One thing I might say is, while these folks didn't show you, here's me pushing malicious code to deployed equipment in the field, they have shown you the building blocks for a successful attack that would do that. They've shown you how they would go to Deere's corporate infrastructure, extract the information needed to do sophisticated phishing attacks. They've shown you that they've been able to get access to and manipulate the web-based, internet-based infrastructure that is used to push software updates, to push configuration settings, to monitor and extract data from deployed equipment in the field. So the fact that they didn't actually connect the dots and actually show you them pushing the malicious code out to the field shouldn't give you a lot of confidence that such an attack isn't already possible in the hands of a sophisticated nation state actor or cyber criminal actor who wants to shut down mission critical equipment during planting season, during harvest season, for a critical window of time, and ask in essence whatever they want. And the fact that attack hasn't happened should give you zero confidence that it couldn't happen tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, next year, whenever. So,
Paul, can I touch on something here? Okay, well, what this is, to answer that question, we didn't present that because, one, it's not legal, two, it's not ethical, and three, we'd go to jail. The bad guys, they don't care about those things. So that's why they do it and we don't. We can't bring it to that level because we're hoping to catch it. This was this is played up a little bit. You know what I mean? As security incidents always are. No, we didn't do anything like he's describing, and he's correct. But like you said, Paul, the fact that hasn't happened shouldn't give pause that it's safe. It could happen.
And you showed the building blocks of a successful attack that could do those things. You showed
we tried
the elements needed. Yeah.
Well, in this screenshot, I'll show you the screenshot. This is the audit log at Pega, and somebody put their password in the email address slot, and we could actually see that it's redacted. But we had the Pega admin email user and password, and they probably didn't even change it.
We're wearing gloves. We have to wear boxing gloves and be all light about it and obey laws and CFAA this. It's hard to even convince the companies there's something wrong because we can't take that extra step.
I just realized I wasn't sharing my screen. Sorry about that. yeah, this is the Pega admin page portal login. I just realized no one could see any of the keys we're looking at. Hang on, let me go back a bit. Yeah, the keys. So these were the keys. SAML keys, Pega admin keys.
This could have been bad.
Security audit logs where somebody put their password in the username slot and we could actually see it in the log. So if you could log in as the Pega admin, you could turn off everything. You know what I mean? You could turn off, well, a lot of things probably. Not everything, but probably everything.
Let me touch on this, Sick, the Pega stuff. Yeah. So the other thing about Pega is, so we found a CVE, which is a 0-day vulnerability or an undisclosed, undiscovered vulnerability affecting a lot of organizations. This actually started with our research that we did with Ford. And the interesting aspect here is Pega is actually like manufacturing or workflow automation kind of software that you can use. And specifically, it's problematic because only employees have access within Pega. So if you can steal tokens, which in our case, we could steal actual tokens of the Pega application, you could potentially authenticate via SSO services, single sign-on services within the organization and take over the organization. And that's not even mentioning all the proprietary data that usually gets stored within Pega systems, like equipment information, problems, tickets for workflows and customer complaints and concerns and stuff like that. There's a lot of different things that get stored in Pega systems. So, you know, we're talking a lot about how do you make, go ahead.
I was going to say,
the other thing,
you're right.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Sick.
Because we're going to wrap it up in a minute, I think, because John's got the next session in like, I think 4 minutes. Is that right? Is that right, John?
Yeah,
we're wrapping it up, aren't we?
We do need to wrap up, and
yeah.
I apologize. We had a little technical glitch and got started a little.
That's all right.
This is a great conversation, and I think that, you know, as the threat landscape is always growing and accelerating, and as you connect more devices in an ecosystem with IoT, ICS, embedded systems, especially where you don't have the ability to cryptographically, securely, remotely manage and update and patch and things like that, you end up with different vendors in this ecosystem communicating with one another, and each of those can be a vulnerable point. You have lots and lots more data being collected because it can be collected. So regardless of the industry, in the IoT and OT space, we're really seeing growth in the threat landscape, and it's not slowing down, it's accelerating. Is that a fair statement?
Yes,
that's right, man.
And I think one of the things that, you know, as companies in whatever industry start to connect their traditionally mechanical equipment, disconnected equipment to the internet, that changes their risk exposure. They need to start adopting an adversarial mindset, which is not what is a nice, good customer or a white hat going to do with our technology? What is a bad guy going to do? And how are they going to do it? And that's a maturity curve, kind of like John said, that it takes time to develop that thinking. Hopefully you do it before you introduce the connectivity features. But as we've seen time and again, whether it's automotive, medical devices, often it's an afterthought. And I think that's certainly true in the agriculture sector, and it's unfortunate, but there's going to be a painful period of adjustment. And I think we've just entered that.
Awesome,
Paul, I
man.
can give
Thanks.
a good example to this, man. I really appreciate these questions from these people, and it just proves that, like, no matter what, we can still reach out to people and answer their questions for stuff like this, even if it's still a new technology. This is really good that we were able to do this.
Well, I want to thank you all for your time today. This was great. I'd be happy to do a CornCon webinar. We're going to be doing those throughout the year. And I think we're going to try to build our audience on CornCon.tv, which is our YouTube site. And we will have the presentations up there in the next week or so. We also have our archives up there. Go to CornCon.net to keep tabs on what we're doing and to follow us on social media. Thank you all, and I will have I'll have slides and other links that I post on the when I get the video up. So I appreciate.
We'd love to do
today.
a
Thank you
webinar.
very much.
We'd love to do a webinar down the track. So just keep in touch. We'll all be there again. If anyone wants to ask some personal questions, webinar. Thanks, man. Thanks for the talk. Thanks for everyone
you.
coming. So
Appreciate
short,
it, guys.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Thanks, CornCon.